Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
Jay.
And this week we've got Brenden Fletcher and Karl Kerschl on the show to talk about their new book, Isola, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, April 4th. But let's let them talk about it. Joining us this week, we have the critically acclaimed team behind Gotham Academy, Brenden Fletcher and Karl Kerschl. Guys, thanks again for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you.
Glad to be here.
You guys are here talking about your new book, Isola, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, April 4th, and on Comixology if you're more digitally inclined. You guys have been friends for decades. There's a clear love of fantasy here, clear love of just almost like on the road journey to the West or journey storytelling. But yeah, so this story you guys have been working on for about 20 years or so?
Sort of. I mean, we in part we've known each other since I think 1984. We went to school together. I think it was grade 6 we met each other, and since then we shared a love of all the same stuff, like a lot of like Transformers and G.I. Joe and Voltron, and then later got more into comics, and then in our teens started crafting stories badly, and then got a little bit better at it. So we've been doing this for a bunch of years, and in the mid-late 90s, we were kind of crafting this epic story that almost saw print at a few different publishers, one of which was Image. And it never happened, but there are pieces of that story kind of in everything we do in Gotham Academy and in Isola now as well. So it's so we've been working toward doing a creator-owned thing at Image for a long time, and Isola is sort of like a culmination of a lot of the stuff we'd previously come up with.
So just to make it's pronounced Isola then.
Well, I mean, the proper Italian pronunciation is probably something like Isola, but neither of us speak Italian. So it's a fantasy world. You can't say it wrong until there is a feature film or animated series or something where somebody actually definitively decides the pronunciation. Although, I mean, I have to say, I don't think to this day we have a definitive pronunciation of Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul.
I always thought that was Raish because it's like actually Arabic.
Yeah, I think that was they decided that on the animated series that the pronunciation was Raish because of the Arabic origins of the name. But then, I mean, if you watch Arrow or Batman Begins, they still say Ra's al Ghul. So, I mean,
is it a Denny O'Neil character?
It is,
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how he would pronounce it.
I think he discussed that on the Fat Man on Batman Kevin Smith episode he was on, and if I could remember anything, I would remember how he said. I don't remember, but yeah, he definitely check out the. I think he talks about that. I think Kevin Smith asked him that.
How long did it take us to turn this conversation into a Batman conversation? 2 minutes?
It's a geek out podcast. I don't think we can go too far down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, that's fair.
The last 3 interviews we've had, Scooby Doo's been invoked. So I mean, unless you guys have like thoughts on Scooby Doo, but we can bring it back to the book.
We do. I mean, we did 3 years of a book called Gotham Academy that is basically our thoughts on Scooby Doo.
Nice. What is your
Scooby Doo crossed with Batman the animated series?
What is your preferred Scooby Doo? Just real quick, and we'll jump back to Isola. I promise. But is it Scrappy Doo, Scooby Dum, or Vincent Price?
Always Vincent Price.
Yes.
However,
Right.
I don't love. Vincent Van Ghoul is amazing, but the best seasons of Scooby Doo were the first 2 seasons. I mean, just look at the background art alone. You don't even have to go into the actual characters and the storytelling. I mean, the background art is stunning. And that's pure Scooby-Doo. That's where a lot of Gotham Academy comes from, those first couple seasons. The Vincent Van Ghoul season, I love Vincent Price. Not a great cartoon.
They never got all 13 ghosts. You were mentioning backgrounds. Something about the backgrounds in Isola. See, I not only pronounced it right, I'm bringing it back
You're
to the
doing
book.
fine, yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
I know, right? Goes around.
That's why he's in charge of the interview and not one of us schmucks.
Yeah.
But there's a cinematic quality, but it's also very, very lush. Very kind of. Is there kind of like a color layering that you guys are, or is there any changes in color layering that you guys are kind of approaching when you're creating these environments?
Well, it's actually a bit different from what we did on Gotham Academy, which was kind of one of the first times. Well, I should back up a bit. Like for a bunch of years, I've been trying to get to the point where we could do a style on the comics page that was as close as possible to traditional animation, like fully painted backgrounds and sort of cel shaded characters. And I kind of got there a little bit with some early stuff I did on the Flash. And then Teen Titans Year One, I think we did a pretty good job of it. I'm still really proud of that series. And then on Gotham Academy, I think we sort of finessed it because we had a big team, and the backgrounds we had a few different colors, but ultimately Michelle Assarasakorn came on board, and she was fully painting and sometimes fully rendering backgrounds over top of my pencils for it. So. That was a look that we were trying to achieve then. And for Isola, it's a bit different in that I didn't want to do fully rendered paintings anymore. I thought I wanted to be a little more abstract, a little more comic booky with it, for lack of a better term, a little flatter. So Michelle is still rendering the hell out of backgrounds, but she's not doing it with paintbrushes as much as she's using like pencil tools and flat textures. So it looks, at a glance, it looks kind of like lush paintings, but it's really, if you look closely at it, a lot of flat colors, sort of like done in a very detailed way.
That's wild, man. Because again, there is kind of that cinematic flair to, especially you guys got some gorgeous landscape shots, and in this first issue, there's a particularly big spread, and yeah, it looks like there's multiple layers, almost like we were talking Scooby Doo earlier, but it looks like cell shaded like animation. Like there's the multiple layers going on there.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, yeah, you're right in that sometimes I'll draw a foreground element that's just a silhouette, and Michelle will kind of put that out of focus or blur it, so it gives it a bit of a depth of field effect. That's kind of the closest we get to sort of painty effects in the book. Like even the characters actually are. If you look at Gotham Academy, it's treated more like kind of high-end animation in that there are several layers of shading on each character, or at least two. Like sometimes a couple of different light sources, or like a light shade and a darker shade and a highlight. But on Isola, I've been Michelle and I go back and forth on these things all the time, and unless there's a really good reason to hit the characters with some kind of like bright light or cast shadow, we try to keep them as flat and open as possible.
Now, Brenden, you're also working on Motor Crush over with Image, but Karl, this is your first, if memory serves, this is your first like major creator-owned work. How's the experience been for you guys?
Amazing and nerve-wracking. Like it's really exciting. I mean, as I said, it's been kind of 20 years getting to this point. I'm a huge Image nerd. Like I've always loved Image comics. We went to the 1992 Chicago Comic-Con where Image appeared for the first time.
Oh, wow.
In an Image tent. I've got a T-shirt from there somewhere and like a bunch of signed stuff. Like we met a bunch of those Image guys. I took my first submissions there.
Eric Larson told Karl that he had to work on his butts.
Yeah,
look at more butts. He
said, "Look at more girls' butts." That was his advice to me.
Yeah,
best advice I've ever heard.
That, and it paid off. But no, it's really great. But actually, it is my first mainstream creator-owned work. But I also did, and I'm sort of still doing a web comic I drew for 7 years, once a week, called The Abominable Charles Christopher, which is all creator-owned and self-published. And I did that.
And Eisner Award-winning.
And that. So yeah, it's not.
Well, you weren't going to say it, so I had to say it.
I actually forgot about it. Didn't even occur to me. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the the process of putting, like, dealing with the printer and putting a book together and stuff like that is not completely foreign to me. But it's neat now to have the image team behind it and have a bunch of people who are there to help you and have a proper workflow and are enthusiastic. So I mean, I haven't quite allowed myself to believe it yet. I think when I'm holding that first issue, I'll believe it. But until then, it's still just day after day of working.
It's surprisingly the same for me. Even though I've done Motor Crush, the Motor Crush team is a lot larger, and we've always had an editor. And the editor on Motor Crush, first Janine Schaefer, and then Jennifer Smith, they take care a lot of the production stuff that comes up. They do a lot of the back and forth with Image. They handle a lot of the details. They liaise between different creative partners. Like we've also got a book designer on Motor Crush, Tom Mueller in England. So I don't touch a lot of the kind of day-to-day of how the book is actually assembled, how it all comes together. I sort of get my hands dirty in a little creative direction, but I don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting. In Isola, it's just me and Karl for the most part. I mean, Michelle's doing color work, and Aditya, who does the letters for Motor Crush, is also doing the letters for Isola. But it's Karl and I packaging this thing up. He's doing all the book design. He did the logo. I'm doing all the sort of editorial tasks, most of the liaising with Image that isn't actually with the production department. It's a lot more work than say if we were doing Gotham Academy. It's even more work than Motor Crush, but it's very rewarding. And I think when we get that first book in our hands, it's going to blow our minds.
Well,
I think something that no one talks about is that I mean, when people talk about Image being, it's like self-publishing in that you're kind of like a mini business or office unto yourself. But what no one really talks about is that, yeah, you're kind of working in the same way that you work on anything else for the first 3 issues. And then as soon as that first issue is solicited, things go into crazy hyperdrive, and you're suddenly dealing with like a million tasks that you never thought you'd be dealing with before, from production to sales, marketing, like variant stuff, reaching out to people, like deciding how many comps you want, like all these things that take away time from actually producing the book that you didn't really anticipate. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I spent the last week and a half putting together marketing materials, getting on the phone with retailers. I spent 4 days in a row, my entire day was just filled with calling retailers and then doing email follow-up and making sure that everyone has the materials that we put together, sharing the first issue PDF as well as a preview of the entire first volume, all these printouts and downloadables. It's been bananas. Like, the amount of stuff that we're juggling at the moment is nuts. I don't know how guys like Remender, I don't know how they do, like 20 titles at a time, like he seems to do. It's awe-inspiring. I wish I could figure out how to manage it.
Well, speaking to Rick, he's got, Seb Gerner edits all his stuff, and he's got a publicist, and Rick's got a whole operation, man.
He's got a big team, right? Yeah.
There's quite a bit going on there. But to take it to the book itself, there's kind of almost like a Don Bluth kind of influence going on there. A lot of kind of like 80s animation, and I'm seeing I'm getting some Dark Crystal and some He-Man vibes. But what was it about kind of creating this fantasy story with this kind of this end game or this goal, venturing towards the titular Island of the Dead? Where did that all kind of come from?
That was Karl having 2 separate audiences for the 2 different types of work that he was doing for years. That the Charles Christopher webcomic was very successful, is very successful. It's amazing, it's award-winning, but it has its it has its own audience that doesn't really cross over to, say, Gotham Academy or Teen Titans Year One. And vice versa, all those other DC and Marvel comics, action adventure comics, the audience that reads those books doesn't really go to the webcomics. So this was an opportunity to build something that could be a crossover project. And we didn't have anything. And I went to the gym one day and just got on the elliptical and just stayed on it until the bones of this concept kind of came into view. And I immediately rushed to the studio after that and kind of laid it out for Karl just in its sort of purest form. And I think it was all the nuts and bolts that we needed to get going were there.
Yeah. And then Karl, in terms of like visualizing it, was kind of the 80s influence there?
Well, not consciously, but that stuff is a huge influence on everything I do, I'm sure. Like, we're huge fans of Macross and Robotech over here. We watched a ton of anime. We watched a lot of all the 80s cartoons. We were big He-Man fans. I mean, all that stuff creeps in. In my case, yeah, like there's a lot of like Capcom Street Fighter art. There's all that stuff sort of influenced me. There's so many influences. Like when I started, I'm sure I was mostly drawing in sort of an 80s cartoon style, and then we got hooked on ElfQuest, and I started steering that way, and then Robotech took me another way, and then when I first started getting into comics, it was very much like I was basically riffing on Jim Lee and then Mike Mignola, and then it's just too many influences to count. So somewhere along the line, I took it back to a simpler animated style.
Since you invoked, I have to ask, who is your favorite Street Fighter character?
That's kind of tough. It's changed over the years. It used to be Blanca,
Nice.
and then I think like now I'm like in terms of just playing Street Fighter, I'm a pretty steady Ryu guy. I'll just mostly play Ryu.
Brenden?
Is that boring? Is that a boring answer?
Oh, no. It's fine. You can... I think that was Jim.
I know it's uncool to say Ken because he's kind of a cheater character from what I understand.
He's got the super shuriken, but yeah, the...
Says nonchalantly.
I think Jim Zub's answer was Ryu, too. He was just like, I know it's vanilla, but I gotta go with my man Ryu. I was like... But yeah, Brenden, do you have a preferred Street Fighter?
Karl can answer for me. I'm so obvious.
Oh, do you want me to answer?
From when we were kids, we were playing Street Fighter 2 on Karl's. Was it Super Nintendo?
Yep.
Yeah, in your living room, and I just could not stop playing Chun-Li. And it's carried over to Street Fighter. I don't own Street Fighter 5 yet, and I know that's for a Street Fighter fan that's a horrible thing. But I heard so many bad things about it, and I didn't have a PS4 yet. So when we got the PS4, I had read all this negative press, and I just kind of steered clear, waiting for the next version. And I know Street Fighter 5 Arcade is out. I want to get into it. But let me just say, while Chun-Li is eternally my favorite. Over the course of playing a lot of Street Fighter 4, I kind of got into Juri. Is that how you say her name, Juri?
Yeah, she's the Korean character, yeah. I just know that because I'm like half Korean. So I was like, oh, cool, and you're like a villain like cyborg woman. Okay. But she's a Korean character, so that's good representation.
She's pretty great. She's really fun to play.
There's so many of these weirdo like stuff from like Street Fighter EX and all these different things that are
Skullomania.
Like Skullomania, yeah, he's super cool. Like design wise, there are characters I like way better than Ryu. But when it comes down to just picking up the game and playing it, I'll usually just play Ryu.
I was hoping, like, speaking of Seb Gurner, his favorite Skull, because apparently Street Fighter comes up a lot on this podcast too. In addition to Scooby Doo, Skullomania was his favorite as well. So. Good choice.
Great name.
It's probably the dumb name and the kind of fun design. Because I remember, I don't think I ever played Street Fighter 3 But I got to see it in the arcade a couple of times when it was new, and that character was the big question mark. Like, who the hell is that guy?
Yeah,
he just looks so different from everyone else.
Anything with skeletons is okay with me because, like, one of my favorite things in the He-Man stuff is Scare Glow. You know, the guy that would like glow in the dark. I got the like massive like that big hardcover Art of He-Man book for Christmas,
cool.
and it's like the coolest thing in the world. Like just to see the evolution of the characters and you know, all throughout the years, and hoping that when the movie comes out, it'll be the greatest thing of all time.
You guys have probably talked about this, but that Toys That Made Us documentary has a great He-Man
we
episode.
had the showrunner on last week. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got to go listen to that because I really enjoyed that.
The next 4 episodes come out in June. There'll be Star Trek, Lego, something that isn't Star Trek, Transformers, and Hello Kitty. Yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah, that He-Man one was amazing. Like the fact that the concept came from an actual corpse, you know, like when he was a kid, yeah.
Also, the origins of Battle Cat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which you guys kind of have so you kind of have the not quite a battle cat, but you've got a magical tiger beast going on here. If I could venture a guess, it isn't the Isola isn't the quest to the island of the dead, but it's the friends we made along the way. It's watching Captain Rook kind of and her relationship with her queen kind of develop over the course of their journey. That's the emotional crux of the story.
Of course.
Always...
It's the book is a low-key romance book, and these are two people separated by geography for the longest time, but eternally separated by station, and now separated by magical curse as well as station. But they have a history with each other. And we dig into that over time and watch them sort of push and pull against their personalities and their history, their magical curses, and really, I mean, their upbringing, their station is really what is the biggest challenge for them. Overcoming who they were meant to be, to become who they actually really are inside. And the queen, of course, is not a giant cat. She's just been stricken with this curse, and the only way that they can figure out to reverse it is to get to this place that may or may not exist. This island called Isola that all kids in the kingdom of Mar have grown up hearing about or reading about or hearing songs about. But it just seems like something out of make-believe. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But they will get somewhere, and their relationship will develop.
And I'm guessing every issue with every stop along the way, the opening here, the crumbling city, and in issue 2, the inevitably cool things that haven't been solicited yet, so I'm just stalling for time, kind of mirror where their relationship is or represent a different step along that relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I don't know if it's quite 1-to-1 in terms of symbology, but yeah, I want to, we want to take them through as many interesting environments and hardships as possible in order to, give, just to develop their relationship, just to see how they react. I mean, the beauty of this is that we have a destination in mind, but we could carry on this journey portion of it as long as we wanted to, as long as it was interesting, as long as we can keep coming up with new places for them to be in.
All sorts of detours and that sort of thing. So, gentlemen, something we ask everybody that comes on the show, what are you guys currently geeking out over?
I'm always geeking out over Dracula. because there's just like never an end to the variations of Dracula. It's my constant. I have a new copy of Hammer's Scars of Dracula here, which is not the best of the Hammer films, but it hasn't had like a really great home video edition like ever. And if you have a multi-region Blu-ray player or the like, you can import this version from Britain. It's locked to region B, but it's great for what it is. If you care about Christopher Lee or old Hammer movies or Dracula in general, that's a pretty good one.
I've been geeking out over two things actually. One of which is I'm finally playing Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I don't know, many hours into it, but I haven't had much time to play it in the last few weeks. I love it though. I think it's amazing. I've been kind of a Zelda nerd for a long time, so it's nice to indulge in that.
Sure.
The other thing, I'm almost embarrassed to say the other thing, because like a lot of my geeking out has to take the form of stuff I can listen to while I'm drawing. So, or like, infrequently glance up and look at. And I've been sort of binging on this YouTube series of this guy restoring a 1967 Porsche in his home, which I find fascinating. I'm not a car guy or a mechanic, but I'm super interested. I'm just interested in learning, and I really get off on watching people who are really good at a thing and really meticulous kind of DIY stuff. So, and I like Porsches a lot. I just love the design of those cars because my dad used to have one. So that's what I'm geeking out over. Not what you expected, I'll bet.
Steven Sanders was geeking out over milk plastic when we had him on, so we're game for anything. Brenden, you had invoked Dracula, and we've had Becky Cloonan, your partner in crime from the Gotham Academy days, on the show before. I have to ask, what is your favorite Castlevania game?
I only played the first two Castlevanias, so I don't feel like I'm really equipped to properly answer that. I found those games less frustrating than Ninja Gaiden, but honestly, that style of gameplay, Ninja Gaiden really burned me out when I was a kid on those old platformers. I think the last one I really got into, not counting the ones we played at Karl's place, that I think were rented, like Star Wars and stuff, or Super Star Wars. I think it was the '89 Batman game.
Oh wow! Yeah.
For the NES.
That game was hard as hell.
Yeah, it was. But like, it was basically a Castlevania game or Ninja Gaiden. Like they all kind of had similar gameplay. Yeah, I'm a Dracula guy, but not to the extent where like I have to play every Dracula video game or listen to. There's just too much Dracula stuff in the world. I'm kind of like a Dracula movie and book guy, I guess.
You had mentioned Christopher Lee, but you mentioned Scars wasn't your favorite. Is your favorite like Prince of Darkness or Horror of Dracula?
Well, I mean, yeah, Horror of Dracula, as it's known here, Dracula. I mean, you can't beat the original. I really, this may be controversial, but I really, really like Brides of Dracula. It doesn't have Christopher Lee. It's got a great performance from Peter Cushing. The cast all around is really good. I'm not really into the lead vampire in it, but it's a cool movie. It's a really different movie.
Yeah, they had to get creative because they couldn't get Christopher Lee.
Yeah,
I want to chime in and say that Castlevania 2 is my favorite Castlevania.
Really? Simon's Quest?
Simon's Quest. I finished. So I didn't want to derail your Dracula conversation too badly, but I've just been sitting here thinking about Castlevania, and I finished both of those games. And while I think Castlevania 1 is a tighter, better game, Castlevania 2 is just this beautiful beautiful series of flaws and has a killer soundtrack. And in my, I think in terms of my affections, like I'll give it to Castlevania 2.
Is Castlevania 2 the one that Becky did the album art for?
Oh,
she did 3.
I think it is.
No, she did.
Okay.
She
3
did
was the one where you
Dracula's
could change characters, and it was okay, but they started to lose me then.
Yeah, I know.
I rented that one and didn't. I played it for whatever the 2 or 3 days I had it on the rental and took it back.
She mentioned she was doing album artwork for Symphony of the Night, but I don't think they've released it yet.
Oh, that's a great.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. She said it on the air. I'm not like spoiling anything. No exclusives here,
Yeah.
So I guess that's something they usually release those around San Diego, so it'll hopefully be out by then. But yeah, any before we let you guys go, anything else you want to plug or any kind of like teases, like last teases on the Isola?
Well, there's a bunch of stuff that the Image hasn't announced yet. There are some other things to look out for around the release of the first issue. We can say that we haven't spoken about this publicly, I think, but the first arc, the first volume, is 5 issues in length, so it'll run through August, and the first trade paperback will be out in October. Right around the time of New York Comic Con, so we'll be signing books hopefully at New York Comic Con. What else Isola related, Karl?
I can't think of anything.
Oh, well, the big news, the press release from last week, is that we're doing 2 covers now per. Karl is creating 2 beautiful covers per issue. I'm standing behind him like a proud dad, I guess. But we kind of we went to Comics Pro, the retailer conference in Portland, and we listened to the feedback of a lot of retailers and what they saw in our first issue, what they liked and didn't like about how we were presenting the book. And some retailers had some issue with how we were how the covers were created in terms of how they would work in their stores. And the best way for us to address that so close to print deadline was to have a second cover that met all of those needs. So every month now we're going to have 2 covers, the original style of covers that we really like, and then a cover that more closely reflects the interior art of the book with a different logo placement. And Karl is doing all this work because he has nothing but free time.
Yeah, I would recommend anyone who's making comics. I would recommend they go to Comics Pro and talk to people there because those guys are really smart and they'll tell you exactly what they need to be able to properly sell your book. There's a lot of stuff we learned.
Yeah, it was a really worthwhile trip.
Well,
aside from that, I want to say that another thing a lot of people don't know because I haven't really talked about it much is that I'm doing one of the stories in the Ghost in the Shell hardcover that's coming out in October. There are 4 stories in it. One of them is by me and a guy named LRNZ from Italy, and his work is to die for. It's going to be a gorgeous 30-page story in a large hardcover volume, and I'm really pumped to start showing that off to people.
Cool. I'm usually at New York Comic Con in some capacity, so hopefully we'll cross paths and I'll say hey and we can talk Dracula or Street Fighter. Well, again, that first issue of Isola out on Wednesday, April 4th in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology. Thanks again, Brenden and Karl, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Good talk.
Yep.
Again, that book is out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, April 4th. Isola. What did you guys get into?
I don't even know. I don't even know if I did anything this week.
I know Jake's been watching Death Wish.
Oh yeah,
after the Spirited.
Oh, if all you remember last week, I went into minuscule detail about the new one, which I actually enjoyed, and I was like, I'm gonna rewatch all of them because I haven't seen all of them. I've definitely seen the original classic Death Wish, and doesn't hold up super well. It's more of it doesn't age super well. All of the stuff that I really enjoyed obviously comes from Bronson's performance because, we're supposed to believe that Bronson's like a bleeding heart liberal. I think someone calls him that in the beginning, and whatever his politics were in real life, like his movie persona is not that, And so I think one of the things, and with the new one too, with Bruce Willis, you're supposed to be led to believe he's like not a badass. Said it a million times, like the problem with a lot of the Death Wish stuff, they did it with Death Sentence too, with Kevin Bacon. But Kevin Bacon can throw a punch and shoot a dude in the face,
whoop some ass.
And Jodie Foster did it in the Brave one. But like Charles Bronson, like that dude's gonna kick ass. You know what I mean? It's fun watching him kick ass, but they've never really captured what's so scary and horrifying about Death Wish. The novel, and I also started the sequel, Death Sentence, because the author, I believe his name is Brian Garfield, did not like the Charles Bronson one, and so he wrote
Mondays either.
Yeah, he didn't. He wrote Death Sentence as a response to the first book, or to the first movie. Excuse me. So yeah, I am in the middle of watching 2. This stupid podcast is stopping me from watching 2 right now. So let's hurry this fucking thing up.
3 has the best ending of any Death Wish movie.
Bazooka.
Bazooka
gum?
Yeah.
Yeah, he chews a lot of bazooka gum and he goes, "Here's your bazooka, pally."
Yeah. I got your joke right here.
Is 2 the one? And again, I think 2's the one where he's like, I've heard it from somebody else, where he's like, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "You're about to meet him." I hope that's in there. Somebody said that. I hope it's in there.
You can always add it yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit there and just keep saying it every. Oh, I don't know if we ever put this on record, but it's my favorite Charles Bronson story of all time.
Oh,
so when he was looking for the next movie to do, they came up to I guess it was the director of the first one, Michael Winner. I think he's the second one too, but Michael Winner. They did a lot of movies together. He was like, "Hey, I got this new thing. Like our next project can be." It's this thing called Death Wish. It's about a guy who loses his wife is murdered and his daughter is put into a horribly abused, put into a catatonic state, and he goes out and shoots muggers. And Charles Bronson goes, "I'd like to do that." And they go, "Make the film?" He goes, "No, shoot muggers," which is like the craziest shit, man. His whole take with the Death Wish, the first one, who knows what the sequel is, but the first one was like violence only causes more violence. Like nothing's learned. That might be true, but like the movie clearly is like, go Charles Bronson. And it's hard because like I think Charles Bronson, I like him as he's like Eastwood or John Wayne. Like you watch him to see him kick ass. And
Once Upon a Time in the West is one of my favorite westerns of all time, and he's front and center.
Yeah, and to see him kind of kick ass is great. He's got that great.
Charles Bronson's the entire reason why I can play harmonica.
Yeah, he invented the harmonica. He's got a great shoot you in the face stance, like Kevin Costner in Wyatt Earp. So yeah, I will keep you guys. You guys are on the edge of your seats about the rest of these Death Wish movies. So we'll see. 2 is just a total nut movie right now. Just nuts.
The Nut Job.
The Nut Job, starring Charles Bronson. Get away from my nuts, squirrel. How'd you like a 38 in your face, pally? I realized that, like, in the first Death Wish, he doesn't sound like the impression people do of him.
Yeah.
But in the second one, I swear to God, he's doing a Charles Bronson impression the entire movie. Because the first one, he's very, like, there's, like, moments of actual, like, character development. And to go from, like, him being, this very charming, charismatic guy in the beginning and, wouldn't harm a fly kind of deal, to by the end, he's, like, just murdering. He's just a cold-blooded fucking killer, that great scene with the sock over his head, like, and smashes the sock full of coins. Which is my barometer, like 0 out of 5 socks full of quarters is my barometer, and I give the first Death Wish 4 socks full of quarters out of 5 socks full of quarters. But 2 is just him, like it's like a complete different franchise. He's just happy with like a new girlfriend, and his daughter's alive briefly because you can't stay. If you love Charles Bronson in the Death Wish movies, you're dead. You're dead, Pally. So I wish he was still around making movies. Miss you, Charles Bronson.
So you didn't do anything, Chris?
Nothing substantial. I ate, drank, was merry. I guess went to karaoke like usual.
How's the crowd?
You know what? Okay, there we go at karaoke. So last week at karaoke, one of my karaoke buddies sang Bohemian Rhapsody, which, if you know me and you know anyone that's been doing karaoke for a couple years, that's one of the few songs that's on the no-fly list because it gets overdone. It's overplayed. It's like how my mom hates Stairway to Heaven because she's just tired of hearing it. But so he sang it, and I was like, oh, you fucking would sing one of the songs you're not allowed to sing. You know, it's that Don't Stop Believin'.
The Unholy Five.
Any Queen song. I don't want to hear Somebody to Love anymore. Stop it. No Queen songs.
At Bottom Girls?
No Queen songs, Pally. I'm only going to talk to Charles Bronson the rest of this. No dice. No Queen.
Sweet Caroline is up there. Any crowd pleaser, basically. But
are you having fun? Fuck you.
Yeah. So he sang it, and I gave him shit for it, and he accused me of just being afraid to sing it. And I was like, oh no, I'll fucking sing it, and I'll do an amazing job. Not to toot my own horn, but I am
stomp
a showman.
some ass.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get those asses in the air, or whatever Sam's famous phrase is
about getting people dancing.
Yes.
This song is designed to raise your asses to the heavens.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things you've ever said. But yeah, so
going up to a karaoke mic drunk, just like, hey, the song is scientifically designed to raise the masses to the heavens, and people dance.
Yeah. They wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took his bet or whatever the phrase is, and I was like, oh no, I'll do it, and it'll be amazing because I am a showman. What I lack in singing ability, I make up for in entertainment. So I did it this past weekend, and toot toot of my own little horn. But like, so it got to the part where in Wayne's World they're headbanging, and I like yelled into the microphone, "Don't you dare fucking headbang to this song!" No real reason why, just because I'm tired of seeing it. And then like at the end of it, I was like, "Good, now no one has to sing it for another 3 months."
It's funny. Like out of every I've never seen someone do Bohemian Rhapsody.
Really?
It's always Somebody to Love. It's always Somebody to Love. Because that is like Bohemian Rhapsody Part 2 in terms of vocals for
Touche.
Day at the Races.
I will say I'll give my bar its credit. Bohemian Rhapsody does not get sung that much.
No.
It was a real problem like 5 years ago. I was hearing it like every week.
We remember those dark times.
Dude, while I was talking to my friend that did sing it about this, I was like, Jesus, I've been doing karaoke like regularly for 10 years now. Fuck. But yeah, so you hear Bohemian Rhapsody a lot.
I've kind of fallen off the bandwagon a bit.
You have. I haven't had anyone to sing Shake It with.
Yeah. Metro Station, yeah. Whenever I do,
or Highway to the Danger Zone.
Kenny Loggins. Yeah, I have to say the artist every time. Yeah,
just to prove you know.
Yeah,
I remember there's that scene in Doctor Strange where like he's doing surgery and like they're like, "What was the single?" Blah 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 blah, and he's like, "No, it
feels so good."
And I was like, "That's Sam fucking Stone doing surgery."
Yeah,
that son of a bitch.
Yeah,
or Sam 5 as he's known on
Sam 5 coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. Sam 5.
Hotlanta.
Sam 5 coming to you singing Somebody to Love.
Whenever I do karaoke, I know why you're laughing. You son of a gun.
I'm a child.
I'll make it work.
Ooh. Okay, Tim Gunn.
Mr. Brightside. Got it. Fucking Reptilia by the Strokes. Piece of cake.
On lock.
Yeah. Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Come Together by the Beatles. Jake's seen me do... Both of you have seen me do the endurance test that's Love Lies Bleeding by Elton John.
Yeah.
I know it.
A small handful of people have seen Jake do Hey Jude, not including himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I've seen him do Big Shot by Billy Joel.
Oh.
Big Shot, Werewolves of London, and Dear Prudence, because our buddy TJ signed me up, and I didn't realize it. And they're like, Jake, come on up here. I'm like, must be another Jake.
And there's some random bar that has seen you do an unofficial karaoke to I Can See for Miles.
I Can See for Miles, yeah. There was no karaoke that night, but yet I sang it anyway.
I'm trying to think.
There was in your heart.
Yeah.
What's the Miss You? The Rolling Stones song. Yeah, that's
What's the matter, man?
I always throw you off with the spoken word part, I think, because I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
But it makes me giggle. Well, so I don't know the song I don't know the studio version that well outside of the like I know it's that one, but like that middle part, much like most people, kind of forget that there is a spoken word portion to that song.
Yeah. Spoken word portions in karaoke is the fucking worst, by the way.
True.
Spoken word in general is the fucking worst.
That's true.
In songs.
Jake does hate spoken
There's
word.
like two people. There. Okay. Paul Stanley does it in God Gave Rock and Roll to You Part 2.
I know.
And then
William
anything Taylor Swift does is fine. But like anything else, don't you dare.
No
don't
Billy
you
Shatz?
dare. No. No.
But yeah, no.
Like the first time I had the first several times that I'd
Billy
heard the song
Shatz.
like in its entirety was you doing it karaoke. And then randomly, like it comes on the radio, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, it's that Rolling Stones song that Sam does." And like, yeah, I hear the way that they do it in the recording. I'm like, "That's different. That's distinctively different."
Well, to be fair, I'm as much as flamboyant as I am on stage. I'm no Mick Jagger.
It's true. You do not have the moves like Jagger.
I do not.
But no, I
kind of do like the awkward strut. But that's as close as it gets.
But yes, I do find it quite entertaining.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Come around over 12 Spring Girls trying to meet you. Gonna bring a case of wine. Come around, fool around, like we used to. Yeah, it's I remember
karaoke episode.
once I did Brown Sugar. Forgot how racist that song is. Then like the big fucking like lyrics broadcast on the screen. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
just gonna that sucks too because that's right in my vocal wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But my favorite Stone song is Jumpin' Jack Flash. Can't sing that one to save my life.
No.
That one's always out of reach.
What'd you do this week, Sam?
Not karaoke. What did I do? Let's see. I watched all of Jessica Jones season 2.
Oh shit.
Is it good?
I haven't started yet.
It's okay. It's not as good as season 1.
I still haven't watched Iron Fist or Punisher or The Defenders.
They don't really reference The Defenders, so you're fine.
I figured it was probably going to be much like the Marvel movies. The solo ones are more or less standalone.
Yeah, I mean, there's Kristen Ritter still does a good job. Carrie-Anne Moss still does a good job. Rachel Taylor as Trish Walker, her not really a fault to her acting, but like her arc in season 2 is not great. It is not great, and the antagonist in season 2 is not as compelling as David Tennant's Kilgrave.
Yeah, he was great.
So
super evil.
Doesn't he still pop up? I mean, I know the characters died at the end of the first season.
How much do you want me to tell you guys?
I'm pretty sure I've seen promotional shots where he is in it. Can you confirm or deny that is
if you
a
spoil
thing?
this for me, I'm going to scream for 30 minutes. I don't give a shit. I'm assuming by Sam not answering means yes, he does show up.
Yeah, right.
He'll show up.
Yeah.
I don't need to know
not
what
as,
capacity.
Yeah. Not a whole hell of a lot.
He's his twin brother, Shilgrave.
Yeah. He doesn't wear purple. He wears shills. I don't know what that means. Shillings?
Yeah, I believe it's a verb.
Yeah.
Where's verbs?
I was talking like right before we started recording about like how fucking bananas Dragon Ball Super is now.
Yes.
That there's now like silver Super Saiyans. What the fuck is that?
I don't know. You would know better than I would. You watch it.
I don't watch it. Like I watch highlights.
I have not even watched that.
I only have time for highlights, Chris. I only have time for the highlights. Yeah. So for all you, because this is totally like everybody that
For all you ballers out there.
yeah, all you guys listen to Dragon Ball or what? No, you just listen. You don't actually
Yeah.
watch Dragon Ball. You guys are hardcore. So there's Super Saiyan where they're like, even Jake knows this on some level. There's like golden haired dudes that are like Super Saiyans, right? And then their hair gets a little like more electrified and they become Super Saiyan 2, and then they turn into like Sonic the Hedgehog and become Super Saiyan 3. At a certain point, they turn red and they become Super Saiyan God. And then at another point, they turn blue and they become Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, better known as Super Saiyan Blue. And then now they're silver. And it's what's been occupying my mind. Rest in peace, Stephen Hawking. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
And thanks again to Brenden Fletcher and Karl for coming on the show and talking about Isola. Again, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, April 4th.
Also, watch Love on Netflix. Season 3 just premiered. Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana. Oh, hey, Eric Bana's in a new movie coming out soon. Check that out. I forget what it's called.
Good promo as always for our friend Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.